Hi, this is John Reed. I am back for Chapter 3, Attention Marketing Gurus, Buyers Aren't Always Buying. Outside, it's holiday season, and there's a storm and some partygoers, so hopefully they won't disturb this recording, but the show must go on if I want to get this to you. So here we go. As if content marketing ROI wasn't hard enough, the informed buyer has come along and ruined the content party. By the way, if you do a search on Diginomica for the informed buyer ruining the content party, you'll find one of my favorite pieces I've written on this topic. Social media isn't faring much better, with broadcast brandware having minimal impact on B2B buyers. Thanks to the efforts of hype-weary analysts like Brian Sommer, Diginomica contributor, who made the case for the informed buyer, content marketers caught on. They grasped the necessity of stocking their websites with informative, search-friendly content and keywords that map to their products. And as Michael Brenner, CEO of the Marketing Insider Group at the time of when I wrote the book, put in an email to us, every buyer's journey involves a question posed to a search engine, at some point, if not often. And while some marketers are uploading Instagram pics or worrying about voice search, most haven't committed themselves to the simple act of adequately answering customer questions in a search-friendly way. So, have we made progress on Brenner's point? Yes. But most B2B marketers are failing when it comes to the most important content in the buying process. Put simply, content often fails the informed buyer's relevance test. Supposedly personalized marketing is sometimes tone deaf to the buyer's problem du jour. Broaden the content you create for the journey map. Don't send your branded content team home or backburner your website. Developing personas and journey maps still has its place. And by the way, that will also inform your additional social media efforts offsite as well. So does tagging content for the right persona, topic, and/or role. As we consider personalizing content by role and industry, we still need to do that homework. But most journey maps look only at the points where the persona is specifically looking for information to help make a purchase. Then content marketers focus their content development on those areas alone. Yawn. This is the B2B content tunnel vision. Writing content that focuses purely on the purchase journey gives you only a limited amount of topics you can cover, and you cover them over and over, struggling to find unique angles or things to say. But in the end, you always cover the same points, and we end up in content fatigue. Serious Decisions noted that 70% of content never gets consumed. That's a pretty high number. How many content teams can afford that kind of wasted effort? So widen your content net to cover things outside specific purchase needs. Why? Because people do more than kick tires on products. They spend a lot of time looking at other content related to their job, content that helps them to do that job better. Consider the highlight of a busy trade show, a dinner with colleagues. The best trade show dinners are a mix of customers, partners, vendor execs, and influencers of every stripe, including reporters. What do such gatherings have in common? An environment of trust and unfiltered viewpoints. Mutual respect of the knowledge and experience of all parties. Recognition that all present are committed to solving enterprise problems. Good humor. A willingness to stray off topic rather than be a corporate mouthpiece. An unspoken agreement that no one will flip into sales pitch mode, and ideally no one's going to hand you a business card in the middle of dinner. So why doesn't our content and the interactions around those content resemble these in-person conversations that are so memorable? Because the show ends and the focus shifts. It's a shame because the right kind of content could further these trust networks and draw new stakeholders into the conversation. Yet B2B content rarely does this, and the price is paid in lost sales prospects. There are many potent topics related to your industry that your team could expertly write about if they are incentivized to go beyond brand-obsessed content. So outline a content development strategy that addresses this bigger picture. It's about mixing product marketing with audience building. Yes, the extra content development will require a percentage of the budget. But if you can measure that against the value the content brings, using attribution schemes we've written about quite a bit on Diginomica, by the way, then you can justify the expense. Beyond content to do their job better, top performers typically want more. They want to know about market trends. Is their team using or evaluating the best products? Are they missing lessons from early adopters? Earn attention with industry expertise. This is where B2B marketers often stumble. Marketing is still about attention. Digital marketing didn't change that. And the new era of what vendors called AI-powered content experiences doesn't change that either. B2B companies learn the hard way. Attention is fickle. Expensive, flashy, viral campaigns come and go. Your web traffic spikes if you're lucky, but your leads don't necessarily. It's sustained attention from the right audience that matters, not viral tricks. Yeah, you can still attempt to buy attention via advertising or paid white paper endorsements, but buying attention isn't much fun anymore. B2B audiences now tend to have a don't bother me unless it's relevant mentality, and the tech to help them block your ads gets better and better. Often they learn more about your brand from peer review sites than from your own website, which they tend to perceive as brochureware, whether that is fair or not. In a B2B context, earning attention is the way forward. As you earn attention through content, you are also hopefully building trust, a fundamental ingredient in enterprise buying. Once you have achieved that attention, you can think about brand positioning, opt-in subscriptions, community engagement, lead generation, embedded e-commerce, and purchasing. So what kind of content earns and sustains attention in B2B? The answer is content with topic authority. Content that makes readers say, let's talk to these experts before we go forward with our CX/ERP/cloud project. Content authority is a potent way to earn attention from the right audience, build relevance and mindshare with that audience, leading to trust, become a part of that buyer's network of influencers and experts. The core themes of an effective B2B content strategy are a bedrock of content drawn from validated customer case studies, and content created by experts at all levels in your organization. And yes, this can include content created by marketers and writers supporting those marketers who interview those experts. But eventually, those experts will need to find their own voices. There's no way around that anymore. Content creation is now part of their job descriptions. If you haven't broken that news to them yet, now is a good time. And maybe building some KPIs around that and spelling out some meaningful social media guidelines that sets them free to say what they need to say in the context of not getting in trouble, but amplifying what's important. That's a good thing to do also. And by the way, I noticed during the reading in this book that I have used the word influencers a number of times. So I just wanted to be clear about that. Like, it's a little bit of a toxic buzzword in some ways. But in the context of what I'm doing here, we view this term as folks that have impact on the buyers in your industry. And most of those folks have pretty deep industry credibility and expertise. But the gist is if they have the attention of your customer base, then they kind of qualify for that term. So hopefully the use of that term isn't distracting, because I'm not talking about like TikTok and Instagram celebrities and stuff like that. Two types of B2B content will advance your cause with today's buyer. One, helpful content that enables customers and prospects to solve problems. This type of content can be further divided into customer use cases, the bedrock of your content strategy. This content earns attention through relevance. We have a ton of customer use cases on Diginomica, and if you do a search, I've written some articles also on the art of the customer case study and use case you can check out. FAQ style content. This maps to the entire buyer and customer journey from those in the sales funnel all the way to mature implementations. This content earns attention via helpful experts. 2. Thought leadership content with personality, authority, and conviction. This content earns attention from those who may not be drinking your brand Kool-Aid. And there's two ways you can go with this thought leadership content, by the way. One is more strong opinions, personality, giving your brand a little bit of positioning around what the edgier topics are that you talk about and getting attention for those. And the second is more deriving lessons across projects and positioning yourself as really expert in certain industries around the transformation that those projects need. And in most cases, I prefer the term project authority over thought leadership for that type of thing. Why? Because thought leadership invokes off-putting images of gurus pontificating detached from customer realities. Effective thought leadership is free from such pretension. Rather, it distills customer lessons and research data with a healthy dose of opinion and personality. The goal? Give readers a context for their project issues and a better handle on customer success. Now, some B2B content experts argue that emotional, resonant storytelling content also belongs on this list. Some claim it's the most important content of all for engaging new audiences. We couldn't disagree more. You don't need to write Game of Thrones to reach B2B buyers. Great storytelling is a high, expensive bar, and it doesn't always tie back to the brand anyway. For my full deconstruction of squandering budgets on overproduced storytelling, do a search for what the heck are content experiences and why are we overhyping them? A skeptical riff on Diginomica. I believe this third type of content, entertaining content, is best left to B2C brands with budgets to match. Why is that? The emotional reaction to storytelling content may quickly fall back to earth when faced with the mundane, frustrating realities of brand interactions. Truly entertaining content is expensive to create and produce. It requires talent that is not always accessible to a brand. It's a very difficult type of content to scale and sustain. Caveat, there is a big difference between developing a compelling brand narrative to hang all your content on and trying to tell a brilliant story every time. As Alan Berkson explains, a brand narrative is not a one-off storytelling expense, but a deeper rallying cry that inspires your employees. And by the way, if you do a search on Alan Berkson and corporate narratives, you can check some of that. That type of narrative humanizes your brand and gives externals something to relate to. The best brand narratives aren't necessarily shared publicly, but they are palpable in everything you do. Think of that narrative as the vibe that makes your business relatable. Thought leader content focuses on relevance in B2B, not entertainment. But there is a real tension between those two approaches in B2B content, and I'm not going to dispute that. Despite what some B2B marketing experts claim, competing on entertainment value is a tough ask. That's because you're actually competing with Succession and Peaky Blinders. I doubt your brand's entertaining content stacks up against Stranger Things, Ted Lasso, or Black Panther. The list goes on, but you take my point. B2B content should compete on relevance instead. Relevance is where helpful and thought leader content come to the fore. Make a difference to someone's project, have a direct impact on their livelihood, and you have their attention. If you manage to entertain a bit in the process, so much the better. But that's a bonus, not a content criterion. And yes, a bit of humor works magic in B2B content, but it's best to stick to the unforced variety. There's no such thing as B2B stand-up comedy, as we're reminded in some cringy keynotes every year. Now, I did want to mention that I am doing a little bit of a rethink on the entertainment part, and I'm going to be writing about it on Diginomica shortly in January. So you can do a search on B2B content and entertainment. Because I recently did a video show on this where I came to the conclusion that there is some entertainment value in B2B, but it's a different type that focuses more on live interaction and engaging audiences around conversations. So it's more of a jugular, raw immediacy than heavily scripted, overproduced content. And there is a very interesting debate about production values and how much production values you really need. And I tend to argue less production values are needed in most cases, but that there is a baseline, especially with audio, that's important, which I did try to achieve on this recording, by the way. So anyway, I've had a good debate with Paul Greenberg and Brent Leary of CRM Players and the Players Production Network on this topic, because they do a lot of B2B video. And you can look for that show, and also the article is going to be on Diginomica pretty soon. The bedrock of helpful content is a collection of industry-specific customer use cases with validated numbers. Project success stories form the basis for everything from maturity models to PR outreach and webinar speakers. Vendors generally do a good job of documenting ROI in their use cases, but what's often missing is the challenges customers had to overcome, including the ever-present topic of change management. For more on that, you can check my Diginomica piece on the do's and don'ts of the customer use case. This dbook is focused on so-called thought leader content. Why? Because when brands set their minds and budgets to it, they're already pretty good at the helpful content of FAQs, product demos, customer use cases, and so on. And second, if you want to reach folks outside your brand universe, thought leader content is far more powerful, but it's also much harder to create. While writing this, I heard an expert marketer claim, "We have enough content. It's just a matter of tagging it for discoverability and distributing it better. Perhaps with the magical help of AI." They actually said that. I couldn't disagree more. It's the crux of my issue with content marketing gurus, and it's why I wrote this dbook. Compelling thought leader content, abstracted from brand promotion, yet full of conviction and persuasive thinking, that's all too rare. But it's the kind of content that earns your way into the buyer's network of trust. That type of content, though, also takes work, and as I mentioned, the dedicated time of your subject matter experts and execs. So why is it worth it? The stats to back up the impact of thought leadership content in B2B are piling up. In 2019, I wrote about my discussion on buyer behavior with Gartner's Hank Barnes, who found that 68% of the buying process has no direct involvement with the vendor, their partners, or the vendor's specific content and information. That means third-party platforms are crucial for brand presence as buyers search for relevant info. But thought leadership content is more than earning topic authority through searches and shares. It's also about building trust with buyers. LinkedIn's State of Sales 2017 report found that buyers rank trust as the single most influential factor in the buyer-seller relationship. And nothing has changed since then. Writing in the 2022 edition, LinkedIn said, "Trust remains the most important differentiator." And I would add that in the In the generative AI era, that's probably even increased even more, so I'll dig up a stat on that for you for the next edition. As Joe Chernoff argues in The Sophisticated Marketer's Guide to thought leadership is a crucial way to establish that trust. Buyers respect vendors that freely offer expert info outside of a sales context. Thought leadership can sound like a pretentious or abstract concept, but the business impact on buyers is real. The studies to support this are not hard to find. For example, in an Edelman and LinkedIn survey of more than 1,300 U.S. business decision makers and C-suite execs, 82% reported that thought leadership has increased their trust in an organization. 55% of decision makers said thought leadership is an important way to vet business. When asked why they appreciate thought leadership, 525 executives in a 2019 Grist survey, the value of thought leadership responded. 68% said it gives them an edge over their competitors. 66% says it keeps them informed on emerging trends. And 64% said it enables them to make better decisions. When asked why they appreciate thought leadership, 525 senior execs in a 2019 Grist survey, the value of thought leadership responded. 68% said it gives them an edge over competitors. 66% said it keeps them informed of emerging trends. 64% said it enables them to make better decisions. But those stats don't tell you how to get there. We'll tackle that next. Hi, this is John Reed. We're on Chapter 4 in Reaching the Informed B2B Buyer, Course Correction, Earn an Audience with Your Topic Authority. And I'm actually re-recording this because there was a massive storm and some partying outside my building when I was recording this. And in the process of doing this audiobook, by the way, I gained a whole new respect for audio book narrators of the human variety. Getting these right and doing them well is, well, it's a lot harder than I thought. Let's just say that. But anyhow, I hope you're enjoying my diligent yet admittedly somewhat amateur efforts to make this a good read. Enterprise buying is a collaborative decision, one that involves experts inside and outside company walls. To reach this diverse constituency and earn their attention, marketers must become educators and publishers, and salespeople must become advisors and challengers. You don't hear that every day, but that's what I really want to make the case for here. By that I mean challenging their prospects in useful ways by sharing data on how their company stacks up apples to apples in their industry, creating an urgency to take action by freely sharing information. Obviously, the landmark book, The Challenger Sale, plays a conceptual role in this type of thinking. Along these lines, in the State of Sales 2022, LinkedIn found that buyers do indeed want to be challenged by sellers. 89% of buyers said they're more likely to consider a brand if a seller changes the buyer's way of thinking. Thought leadership content helps us earn this attention, as long as your brand doesn't get lost in the problematic weeds of email personalization, otherwise known as spray and pray. And I have strike through on personalization there in the printed copy. As Longitude Research put it in The Power of Thought Leadership, a brand that invests in thought leadership and does it well will earn trust from its customers and prospects. The vast majority of executives we surveyed say that if they read intelligent thought leadership, they will be more likely to trust or listen to that company in the future. By contrast, sales-driven content is highly unlikely to achieve this outcome. Yeah, as I've said before, it's easy to choke on the phrase thought leadership. I use it with a touch of sarcasm here, a reminder that expertise isn't preordained, you have to keep earning it. Building topic authority piece by piece isn't easy, I'll grant you that, especially when the debate over attention spans rages on. Some argue that all content must be short and sweet. The trendy phrase is snackable, because human beings now have the attention span of a gnat. And I don't agree with that. See my diginomica piece, Is the Enterprise Still in Content Shock, for more on that take. Fortunately, entertainment value is not the only way to gain attention, or enterprises would be in one heck of a pickle. It's about sincerity more than poetry, and come to think of it, B2B poetry is a pretty bad idea. But here's the next problem. You now need to sustain that attention. Prospects consume at least 7 or 8 pieces of content before they buy. So it's a safe bet they won't settle for bland position papers. So why is sustained attention so difficult in B2B? Start with the obvious problem of interruption culture via streams of mobile pings. When peeps get distracted by the latest baby pictures, they aren't downloading your slide deck. But there's more to it than that. Communities are fragmented across social channels. The days of insiders eagerly gathering on your corporate website and posting thoughtful comments there are mostly gone. Walled social gardens dominate online activity. Social media megasites are usually destination number 1, not a rarely bookmarked corporate website. Conversations about brands move from platform to platform, so finding and seeding discussions across the walled gardens of sites like LinkedIn and Facebook can be a beast. And of course, you've got X and you've got Blue Sky and many other places where conversations are happening. Fewer people than ever bookmark and visit your homepage of their own accord. Their consumption habits are dictated mostly by social shares and subscription pings. They arrive on specific pages and often bounce from those same pages. Organic search on B2B content is extremely competitive now. Gone are the days when you could quickly own a micro vertical with search content because no other firms in your industry were producing content. Audiences want to consume your content on a variety of devices and platforms, from YouTube to Kindle to Alexa. And as they move from platform to platform to platform, you can lose their attention to competitors, for example, losing out on voice search. A bad user experience ensures your content goes unread. Consumer darlings such as Netflix and Spotify aren't just about superior content. They've also accustomed us to a superior UX that is fast loading, easy to navigate, loaded with recommended content, synced across devices. How many of your content teams have all of that nailed down? But fortunately, attention is a continuum. You only need the right attention from the right audience. And you only need it some of the time. 1. Earn attention via topic authority, content curation, and providing visibility to industry events on your platform. And 2. Sustain that attention by building opt-in audiences that include your target buyers and their network of peers and influencers. Opt-in, of course, means subscriptions, social follows, and signups. A free exchange of data for perceived value with transparent disclosure on how that data will be used is part of the picture. 3. Then shift from opt-in audiences to opt-in communities as users generate more of their own content and join conversations they find relevant. Sometimes I use the word audiences and communities interchangeably, but I really shouldn't. Building a community is definitely the higher bar, and it's one that is more valuable to your brand, and it results in a lot more user-generated content. The above 3-point model is very different than what you'll typically see from B2B content marketers, which is a big reason why I wrote this ebook. For example, I see far too much emphasis on storytelling and not enough on sharing expertise. And I see far too much romanticization of marketing tech, which will supposedly earn attention by personalizing experiences at scale. Idealizing content technology in this way just gets marketing and sales off the hook, nothing more. Throwing terminology like hyper-personalization around will distract you from the fundamental process and culture changes that you need to make first. Marketers are great at plugging yet another tool as if that will fix everything. Meanwhile, idealizing personalization tools implies that you have all the great content you need, as if all you need to do is just show it to the right people at the right time, but that's not the case. Instead of handing over gobs of cash to AI vendors who can supposedly anticipate your prospect's every move, hold up. You should be turning your audience into opt-in subscribers, geared around the cadence they want and the topics you know they can deliver on. And then AI starts to make a lot more sense. You don't have to try to game the social media algorithms at that point because you found a way to serve them directly and serve your audience directly. You don't have to guess who they are or what their next move is because they've told you who they are, and they want you to return with more of your trenchant insights. But before we worry about how to get audiences to opt in, we need to reach them in the first place. Earn influence through thought leadership. As the introduction noted, it's getting harder and harder to buy influence. Savvy buyers can see right through the enterprise game of sponsored surveys and analyst research for hire. Yes, there is research out there that has integrity, but once you have to start paying to be studied and written about, buyers can just smell it. It still works in some cases, but diminishing returns come fast. The best response? Cultivate your own internal experts and make them invaluable to the buyer communities you serve. Earn your own influence. The statistics support this assertion. 58% of business decision makers said that thought leadership material was directly responsible for awarding business to one organization over another. Yes, building a good thought leadership strategy takes effort, and I believe organizational change. It's not as simple as identifying an expert in the company and just putting out content on their behalf. Nor should you go out and hire some guru to speak on your team's behalf either. As Robert Rose, Chief Strategy Advisor for the Content Marketing Institute, put it, the world will always need more thought leadership because, by definition, thought leadership is rare and actually leads thought. And this is the challenge that most businesses have with thought leadership. They don't actually lead thought. Most businesses conflate product and services differentiation with thought leadership. True thought leadership is not laying out an argument for why your brand's approach is unique in the marketplace. It is laying out an argument for why everyone in the marketplace should get behind your brand's unique ideas. When it comes to execs that you want to be thought leaders, getting them to fit content production into their regular schedule is a big ask. The same goes for subject matter experts and product leads who are often caught up in customer projects. The first step, convince them that creating impactful content is part of their job description. With any luck, this ebook will help. The next step, provide them with the editorial support they need. And down the line, maybe you can even build in KPIs into what they're doing that reward them for the efforts they're taking there. The best way to work with busy experts, collaborate on the content. For example, a ghostwriter can interview them and help by writing first drafts. Or you can put them on your company podcast, as long as that podcast is one of those that is more opinionated and compelling and not an overly branded infomercial. Michael Brenner, who was working at the Marketing Insider Group at the time, warned us that you can lose track of the content prize. The future of thought leadership is bright, he says, but it's not without obstacles. For every leader who builds and executes a solid thought leadership strategy, quite a few attempt it and miss the mark. They think the definition of thought leadership is a certain size of following on social. In reality, it's an ongoing process of educating and building trust with your audience members through high-quality content that actually engages them. Sourcing your thought leadership content. You already have it internally. When Diginomica works with leaders who are striving to find their content voice, it can be rough sledding at first, not going to lie about that. Executives are generally good at well-branded sound bites. They need to be. It's what an elevator pitch is all about. Yet figuring out how to speak directly to the challenges that customers face without focusing too much on your own products and services takes practice. By contrast, product leaders might not be very experienced with this kind of dialogue yet, but they can get the hang of it because they know what they know, and they know what customers are dealing with. And it can be done because all the content is there in all of those experiences. Your internal talent knows about your customers, their struggles, and how that can be overcome. Just pull in your own benchmarking or survey findings, mix in data from respected third parties, and you're on your way. Pro tip, and this is a big one, the more people who review your brand's thought leadership content before it is approved for publication, the worse that content will be. Check for errors and legal issues, of course, but remember, writing by committee invariably produces bland, safe, dull, unmemorable content. Is that what you want? Two kinds of thought leadership resonate most with B2B buyers. One, expert views on project lessons. Being able to draw insights from across customer products is valuable, especially if your thought leader knows an industry inside and out. Buyers are eager to avoid failure and learn from those who are creating better metrics for measuring project success. 2, opinionated takes on industry issues. Not every exec or product lead is willing to be outspoken, and not every outspoken take is a good idea. But those who have a knack for it can make a big impact, and I share a couple of examples of that later in this ebook. As above, these approaches can be backed up by third-party data, as well as your own findings. But be careful not to lean too heavily on sponsored research, as it may create a credibility gap for readers. Where possible, pair it with independent studies that validate your conclusions. You may be wondering how number 1 differs from the helpful content I referred to earlier. Thought leadership content is rarely a detailed how-to article. The goal here isn't to tell a singular customer story, but to look across a range of projects and extract useful tips and proof points. Your customer stories and case studies have a different mission entirely, which I've covered a little bit already. Pull all of this off, and you can achieve project authority, and that's something that many analysts in your industry probably can't even manage. Content by internal experts, culture change required. Marketing departments often try to create all of their own content. It rarely works. Too often, the output is overly polished or watered down from excessive group approvals. It doesn't feel authentic and insightful or even close to that. There should be people on the marketing side who think like editors and create like journalists. They can tap into your subject matter experts who are too busy to write their own blogs and interview or video them instead. But there is a deeper problem here, and it's a cultural one. If you want original content from experts across your organization, they'll need a big nudge and perhaps some big incentives to get it done. That's because subject matter experts are not used to thinking of themselves as marketers. They may even have a taste for it or claim to be too busy to help. But anyone who is an expert in your organization should be producing content, and there's a meaningful way to track that and make it count. Marketers can't earn attention without the help of those internal experts. Sorry. Smart companies empower their executives to blog and speak on industry trends, without being hamstrung by overcautious approval mechanisms. We've also seen tech experts contributing to open source projects and technical communities, but what's missing is everything in between. Everybody who is good at anything in your organization is a potential content producer or externally visible expert, as long as their knowledge is directly relevant to your industry and authority area. Needless to say, many companies claim that position is untenable and unfeasible. But if you want to earn attention through challenging, original, and useful content, your culture needs to reflect that freely shared know-how. Knowledge sharing also has an impact on enterprise buying, where subject matter experts, both inside and outside your organization, have a bottom-up influence on purchases. So never underestimate the power of reaching those who can influence a B2B purchase, such as the security expert, the only one who can verify if your role-based authorization does what it claims to do. To pull this off, you'll need to clear social media guidelines to minimize the risk of occasional controversies and judgment calls. Simply muzzling your internal influencers because of a lack of those guidelines is not the best approach. It's far better for them to know upfront what content they can and can't share, and then trust them to follow those guidelines. Some companies keep their employees on social lockdown, but these platforms are more than mere water coolers anymore. They're also how employees build professional expertise in the content they share and the influencers they learn from. You can't stop employees from being social without hurting their own networks and, by extension, their own knowledge sharing and acquisition. It used to be that you could approve LinkedIn use but prohibit Facebook or Instagram, but now it's all a work-life mashup. You can probably draw the corporate line at Tinder, but that's about it. In some industries, even TikTok deserves a look. Why opt-in audiences, and how do you get there? Let's say you've revved up your thought leadership engine, you're churning out compelling and relevant B2B content, and your experts buy into the power of participating. As a result, you are not marketing to audiences anymore. You're earning influence via experts and buyer communities. They are engaged in online conversations and have well-developed ideas to share. You're building topic authority and earning a different level of trust, post by social post. So where does opt-in come into play? The answer is that as you circulate your thought leadership content, your entire team is promoting and sharing those articles. So you're not just building industry credibility anymore, you're also linking back to other content on your web domain and boosting your search visibility, a happy byproduct of good content. As audiences become more and more invested, they're gradually sharing more of their own data. They've opted in. Email subscribers are still at the heart of this. Nothing puts butts on seats like email. But subscribers take many forms, from YouTube watchers to podcast listeners. Event attendees also qualify, and we're starting to see more opt-in texting as well. So the opt-in factor is huge. You have an audience that values your expertise enough to share their own data. Granted, you might not have the brand passion of, say, a Harley Davidson or Taylor Swift, but you've earned a different level of brand affinity and respect. Helping people and sharing expertise freely have a way of doing that. So it's really an audience of subscribers willingly sharing data in exchange for information, services, and convenience, without the need for shady list swapping. Some people in that audience will never buy from you, but that doesn't mean they don't have influence. They could be subject matter experts called upon by buyers to evaluate tech claims, or they could be advisors of one type or another. Robert Rose, Chief Strategy Advisor for Content Marketing Institute, once warned a Hippo Connect conference attendee during a keynote I was listening to that we're out of runway for spray and pray. Treating content as a supercharged form of advertising is a fail, he said. Marketing must now create and communicate value to a target market at a profit. It is no longer the marketer's purpose to throw content against the wall and hope it sticks. Rose, who is also the founder and chief troublemaker for the Content Advisory and the author of multiple books on this topic, which I do recommend, has disdain for transactional content thinking, he says. We still view content either through the transactional lens, hoping for campaign value, or naively praying something goes viral, or from an inbound lens, hoping for magnetism. Neither is working. Instead, Rose advises us to craft a sustainable owned media approach. That means creating a true asset, an audience of subscribers. By the way, I credit Rose for the opt-in audience concept that I've worked into this B2B content framework. That audience, which hopefully perceives value in the experiences you provide, becomes willing and even enthusiastic participants in content results. But what kinds of results? Rose frames such victories as subscribe an audience, win a customer, and grow an advocate. He sees the greatest friction in acquiring an audience member for the first time. In the B2B space, I believe the tougher problem is keeping their attention. Search can win one-time visitors and do it regularly as long as Google smiles upon you. But even visitors that like you don't necessarily come back. Combat this with opt-in scenarios. Rose admits they use opt-in pop-ups on the CMI site because they work. But in the B2B space, beware of alienating valuable readers with aggressive opt-ins. During our in-person debate, Rose accepted that there is a balancing act there. In B2B, finding the right balance and how much to interrupt your visitors to get them to subscribe is a real art form. But once a visitor shares data, you're onto something. Now keep proving your worth. Over time, your audience will share more data. Many platforms now enable you to obtain more opt-in data over time. This is sometimes called progressive sign-up. HubSpot calls it progressive fields now. Rose has a similar take. When he talks about subscribers, he's not just talking about an email address. Though sometimes that's all the information you need for starters, just to keep that initial sign-up friction low. No one wants to enter their professional bio just to get their hands on a PDF. But as Rose sees it, over time you're after a deeper profile. Of course, subscribers can become dormant. You have to keep serving their needs, surprising them with fresh tips and tactics. They'll share data in proportion to the value you're delivering. In this model, opt-in audiences should encompass everyone relevant to your brand, including prospects, customers, influencers of all stripes that impact your own customers, ex-employees, employees, those who have an affinity for your brand but never buy from you. The bar to achieving a genuine community is higher than audiences, of course, but that's the next goal. So when you hit that community threshold, when your own users and customers start creating memorable content and leave passionate peer reviews without anyone asking or offering them a cheesy prize for doing so. Now they aren't just content consumers. They're moving closer to the most potent weapon in B2B, customer advocacy.